So the big question is this: how are real estate agents like us, who didn't cheat and take on venture capital and are spending money from our own pockets, how do we compete with these billion-dollar real estate tech companies and iBuyers in a way that lets us bring our services and the things we believe in out into the world and still remain profitable? That's the big question. And on this podcast, we'll give you the answers. Welcome to the iBuyer experiment. Hey, good morning. So excited today. We have a special guest on the podcast today. It's Jessie Beaudoin, the CEO of CallAction. He is, oh my goodness, this guy drops massive value and goodwill continually on the real estate industry, and you have a really cool software, and we'd love to hear a little bit more about what you do.
Hello. Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it. Been a while since I've seen you guys.
Yeah, I think we met at Inman a few years back, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think it maybe 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, when I think you were on stage, you were speaking, and that's where we first met. It was still the San Francisco version, and then it was Vegas after that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Inman Connect's going down today.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So yeah, a little bit about me. Been in the real estate space 30 plus years. Personally did about 3,000 transactions, most of that on the mortgage side of things. 1997, I got pretty curious. I was like, oh, this internet thing looks like it's going to do something. Started buying some domain names, taught myself how to program, build some basic websites and stuff like that. By 2000, I was generating about 300 loan applications a day that I started selling to eventually big companies like Quicken Loans and LendingTree.
Awesome.
And so that was really my start of the online side of things. Always been kind of a marketer or salesperson at heart, self-employed since I've been 17 was my last paycheck I collected. So every day since then, I've been unemployed every morning. So
Start every day at zero, right? That's one of the keys to success. Start every day at zero.
So CallAction, the simplest, the elevator pitch is that we kind of automate the outbound outreach to create inbound conversations. So we want to keep salespeople doing what they like to do best, which is talking to people, and eliminate the stuff that they don't like to do, which is outbound outreach and being database administrators and following task lists.
Love it.
Isn't that the truth?
Beautiful.
Yep.
So is that a real Vespa behind you?
That one is a Lambretta, actually.
So
nice. 63 Lambretta. So nice. I have a couple of them. This one is this is my little bit nicer one. I have one that I ride regularly. But I do have a Vespa too with a sidecar. That's how I used to take my kids to school.
Nice.
It was like a clown show every day.
Yeah, conversation starter for your kids, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. So.
No hiding out for them on that one.
How did you even I'm going, wow, Jay, you have a keen eye.
I know, I didn't even notice that until he said that. I picked it up as soon
I like
as
Vespas. They're cool. Yeah.
They are cool, but I didn't even see it.
Back in Italy, there's tons of old people ride around on Vespas.
Or these amazingly beautiful women.
Models, yeah.
Yeah, like these gorgeous women, and they would just
they're in
get
dresses
off.
and stuff,
they'd get off a Vespa and take their helmet off and have this long flowing hair.
Yeah. If you look at the old video, they'll side straddle them, which is kind of interesting. The man is sitting in the front and the woman's on the back side straddle because she is wearing a dress or something. Yeah. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's cool.
For sure.
Well, back to real estate stuff. I'm sorry to
sidetrack. You're sidetracking.
The Vespa.
No, well, Jessie, what I find so I think what I find so valuable in this conversation is that I read a lot of the stuff that you put out. You have a closed Facebook group where you're constantly giving tons of value, massive value. And so I read it and I consume that. I should be throwing you some love on it more, sorry. But it just kind of share with us, because I do see you as this thought leader in our industry. What do you think is going on with real estate and with technology, and where do you think we're at?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's really, it's the professionalism of our industry, right? It's becoming a real business. There's enough commission income out there that's available, right? It's like $70-80 billion. And that's the target, right? Everyone wants to get a little slice of that. So you have big tech companies that are trying to make it transaction based and make it easy. simplify the experience. And then you have the real estate side, which is always going to be around. And what we need to do is just maintain the relationship side of that business. So think of it like an idea of you can use your CPA who you have a relationship with, or you could use TurboTax, right? And it's the relationship that is the value. It's not basically it's not what the task that is being performed. It's the knowledge and the guidance that you share that is the value that builds the relationship. And that's what we need to kind of focus on in our industry. So I think, we're seeing some of that. Obviously, the market is kind of crazy right now. Everybody already knows that, supply demand issues. So it's definitely an interesting time. And in the tech time that I've been doing this since 1997. So I remember when Zillow came out in 2007. So I was already doing this for like 10 years online. And, we just saw that for up until basically maybe 3 years ago, really nothing changed in real estate. Like if you think about it at its core, we did the transaction exactly the same. The financing is still the same, still 100-year-old vehicles using, a mortgage and stuff like that. The people are the same. The process is the same. The only thing that changed was simply access to information.
Yep.
But now what we're starting to see is these new creative models, iBuyers, Pasco, who's doing like the timeshare model for fractional ownership, stuff like that, basically. So we're finally starting to see a foundational change in how the industry is actually ran. But really, it's still the same. All that we did is like every other industry, is it just moved to the internet, made the information accessible, and it just pushed the first point of contact lower down the funnel, because the consumer would self-educate online and only ask, us for our help when they were near the bottom of the funnel or when the internet didn't answer their question. And this is really important. Like, you have to think that lead gen is nothing more than creating questions in someone's mind, and they are willing to exchange information to get that question answered. Right?
Bam.
What if,
That's awesome.
That's
So
good.
what if?
Yeah,
I love
that's
it.
good.
I love it.
Yeah. So if you start thinking about lead gen that way, all that happened before was, our previous lead gen is we were the gatekeepers to that information. So they would call us to ask if a property was available. And then all of a sudden, when the internet comes out and we start displaying that information, and really it was pre-Zillow, because it was really IDX, really all of your competitors were the first Zillows, right? Because they would display that information and everyone kind of did battle that way. But Zillow and Trulia were really just the kind of first national players to aggregate all of that data from everywhere and just make it easy for a consumer to just really find data across the board. And so initially the lead gen space was, they would have a form. If you're interested in learning more about this property, contact us. And that's the question that people had. So, and now as the internet gets better at answering questions, all questions, right? What school district, what's price appreciation, all of those kind of things. What's happening is our relationship is getting pushed further and further down the bottom of the funnel, closer to the transaction itself. So that's what I think is the big change right now. And agents that take serious about building relationships are going to win. And those that are trying to distance themselves from that and focus on a transaction, then you're competing against basically the big boys who are focused on trying to make the transaction easier. So you got to decide where you want to play. So
well, that's what's so amazing about like this technology space. And even though we, want to talk about that, there is so much that has changed, and it's like a platform like yours that's actually given time back to that hunter that you were talking about in certain things, because there's like a lot of this big data and, there's so many data metrics like that you said that actually have like predictive type environments and do a lot of the busy work. so that you can focus on the relationship. So that's why, I mean, I love platforms like yours. I think technology is actually meeting today's consumer more of where they're at so that they can focus on the relationships, which again, like I said, I think it looks like your platform solves a lot of that pain point for agents.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what it is like business is a math problem, right? That's all that it is, whether it's your P&L, your KPIs, or anything like that. It's all math. So the basic problem generally of most businesses is time, right? So if, let's say, for example, you generate 100 leads, and with the advent of kind of iOS 13, where it was the filter unknown callers, and then some of the privacy stuff that's kind of coming up, and soon coming is Apple's, hide my email, which is going to be a really big deal. What you're seeing is that it's taking more and more attempts to actually connect with someone once they've asked their question, meaning once they filled out the lead form and they've self-identified that they had a question, we need to meet with that consumer and be able to answer their question for them. Right now, the math problem is that it's probably taking 10 attempts to get a hold of someone. Wow. So if I generate 100 leads a month, and it's going to take an average of 10 attempts to get a hold of someone, that becomes 1,000 items on your task list.
Wow.
And if you think that, let's say, looking at an item on your task list and reviewing the notes, making the outbound phone call, leaving the voicemail, sending the text message, writing the notes, rescheduling the follow-up task, maybe that takes 4 or 5 minutes. So now all of a sudden 100 leads takes 5,000 minutes, right? Which is my mental math, 85 hours or something like that, somewhere around there, worth of time. And you only have 160 hours per person in, generally speaking, in a work month. So what technology does is provides us leverage to automate the tedious and the repetitious task so that we can focus on the highest dollar productivity activity, which is conversations with people to build those relationships, to share our knowledge and answer their questions that they have. Because the more that we do that, the more that we earn trust. And the more that we earn trust happens to be the foundation of what people like to do business with, people they know, like, and trust. Yep. And what big platforms are doing is they're trying to convey trust through the brand experience, versus we as salespeople are trying to do it as individualized people. So we still need to have those conversations and have those opportunities to build trust. And we're just trying to get you into more of those.
Beautiful.
That's really cool.
That was solid.
Yeah, super cool. And I know you guys have a lot of cool and fancy things you do that with. I'm curious though, you mentioned that the big companies trying to build trust through the brand versus, us salespeople building trust through ourselves and our personal brand.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on what realtors can be doing to build trust with, their brand, in themselves?
Yeah, I mean, real estate is always going to be local at the end of the day. So we actually have a really distinct advantage of being local. From some tactical point of views, from simply being able to have branches that are localized, and the fact that search engines and most AI technology and most platforms are trying to deliver localized results, because ever since mobile has kind of gone mainstream in 2007, and iPhone adoption and having the internet in your pocket, what's happened is search engine platforms, social media platforms, they're able to localize search results without you even needing to ask for localized search results. So for example, one of the top terms is near me, right? Think of yourself like, how often have you ever did, best sushi near me, right? Now, it's just because the phone understands that. And the phone represents, about 55% of all internet access now is actually primarily done through the device.
Yeah, mobile device.
So what happens, although the big portals have a pretty big advantage in terms of curating a good experience on a national level, which then kind of translates down to that localized level, they don't have that local presence. So where realtors can easily win is, by being that local real estate professional. And I know it's kind of trite, and, Gary Vee's beat this down to death of being the, digital mayor of your area. But you could still get very massive wins from this, simply because the search engines are going to favor showing that localized content to begin with. So simple things that we can do to win is, for example, if you use video, post your videos on YouTube, make sure that the descriptions of those videos and your content of that video, that you're mentioning, the local area, ideally by neighborhood name. You want to use, prevalent keyword phrases like, real estate in Scottsdale or whatever it might be that is appropriate to you. And what's going to happen is that those videos will naturally rank, for example, on Google, and oftentimes they will outrank just about anything else, because what Google is trying to do is keep people on its own internal platforms to continue to show advertising. So if you can take the traffic and push it to your YouTube and have YouTubes where you're educating people about the process of buying locally and answering their questions, you're naturally building your authority voice, showing that you're trustworthy and knowledgeable. And when your video doesn't answer their questions, or they have additional questions, then they'll remember you to reach out at that local level because you seem like the local pro. So I would hyper focus on video, and I would do video on YouTube is where I would really focus on, simply because if you start taking a look at the search results right now, Google's made a big push with Google local service ads. I don't know, have you guys seen these? The 3-pack basically across the top.
Yeah.
So if you do a search, like imagine this consumer experience, right? Consumer sees a yard sign, uses Zillow. Let's think of the consumer journey, right? Has the app, gets an email notification from someone that there's a new listing, jumps in the car, drives to the listing because he already knows the price, already knows the bedroom, bathroom count, already knows the payment, knows the school district, knows everything, but calls the yard sign because he wants to talk to the agent because it's path of least resistance. And they know that that listing agent is the person that, or feel like the listing agent is the one that can get him into the property the fastest, okay? But let's say the listing agent doesn't answer. Now they flip back over to their cell phone and go, realtor near me. And then the phone basically serves back the 3-pack on Google of basically the click to call ads. And now they click to call oftentimes the same listing agent who has basically the sign to begin with. And you just bought back your own lead, right? And then you were advertising on the Zillow platform. So what happens, we have to think of that kind of consumer journey all the way through. And all that it is someone is just trying to access information to get their questions answered, right? So we just have to be the people that answer those questions, because that's why people go to professionals, whether it's an accountant, a doctor, an attorney, or anything else. We go to that person because we have a question that the internet didn't answer and we want to try and feel better, right? We can go to WebMD, but we choose to go to a doctor. So, for us, the important part is you got to provide value in that conversation, right? If you're not providing value, then why would they come back and why would they respect us? Okay?
Yeah. Wow, man,
100%.
there's a ton of nuggets there. I'm loving the fact that we've had a lot of, guests recently, and they're all mentioning YouTube and the fact that it's just, an untapped place to really kind of create and meet today's consumer where they're at, like, when they're that next level, right? And I mean, obviously they're still speaking to all the ominous approaches, but I love the fact that you brought up YouTube there, because again, such a...
I think where most people struggle with YouTube is they focus on being the digital mayor, right? And they start saying like, oh, I'm going to do restaurant reviews and stuff like that. But you have to be a little bit more tactical about this. It's important for us to be part of the community, but I think that that's a long-term brand play. If you are a brand new agent trying to get started on this and want to leverage ultimately YouTube to generate leads, which is the reason why you're going to try and do this, what you need to do is select topics that are self-identifying the customer. Meaning, if you go to our blog, it's callaction.co/blog, and I have a post in there. It's like 41 video ideas.
Oh my God, I was gonna reference that, and I'm gonna link it in our description because it is the best article. It's the best. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
No problem. So the easy thing in there is people kind of laugh about it because one of the video ideas is do a video post on highlighting the local dog park. Right? And you go, why would I talk about the dog park? Now, here's the tactical part of it. National Association of Realtors does a study every year called the Home Buyer Home Seller Report. And in that report, about 10% of people relocate because of their pets.
Wow.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So if you think about that, now I already live in the community and I already have a dog, I already know where the dog park is.
Yeah.
Right? But if I don't live in the community, meaning I'm 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles away, because that's the average distance that someone will move, that is the person that's going to do a search for best dog park in name your city, right? Yeah. Now, there's a high likelihood that the people that are looking for that video might be people that are thinking about moving. And all that you're doing is you're trying to self-identify or build an audience and get people to raise their hand that may have a likelihood of doing a move in the future. Now, if I do a video on restaurants, is that person thinking about moving? Probably not, right?
Yeah.
But if I do a video on the top 3 55 and up communities in my city, who's watching that video? Right? It's likely kids of seniors who are thinking about placing their parents somewhere and they're doing the background research for them, right? And now you're building trust with them as being that localized professional. So whoever's watching that video is going hey, this person knows what they're talking about because they're doing these videos on 55 and up seniors. Now, who's the number one homeowner in the country? What generation? Baby boomers. Yeah. They happen to own about 35% of all real estate in the United States, right? So if I do that video, what's going to happen is I'm naturally attracting or identifying people that may have an impetus for moving in the future. So you just have to be tactical and think of ideas of is someone who's going to watch this someone that may be thinking about making a move? And you want to just build that audience. And then that way, that's how you build that local brand. And once you got that kind of firing on all cylinders, then you can do your restaurant videos and stuff like that to build that kind of community as hey, this is the local knowledge broker. But really start initially on the direct response stuff of attracting basically people that are thinking about making a move.
Sure.
So.
Oh, wow, great. Man,
yeah,
I
great.
love that.
I
so
love
many
the
nuggets, but
tactical.
man, we're up against it as far as our normal time slot goes today. We're gonna have to have you back.
Yeah,
this
we're
is
gonna have
Yeah, no problem.
We need a part 2 on this one. There's
Yeah, you're
too much
dropping them all.
knowledge being dropped.
So
no problem.
So tell us
You
really quick, an agent that is looking for something like CallAction. What does CallAction do for me as an agent?
Yeah, what we do is
How do I
try
use
and
it?
we just automate the outbound. So if you're doing, some kind of lead gen, like we discussed basically earlier, the math problem, right? All we're trying to do is solve the math problem by leveraging your time. And what we do is if you think of business, there's kind of 3 primary pillars, right? There's people, systems, and processes. And what happens is you need to simplify the process as much as possible for your people to follow the process because it's the process that works the system. So as an example, let's say the sales process is I want you to circle prospect, right? I want you to sit behind the computer and circle dial, 1,000 people, okay? That's the system. The system is circle prospecting. Now the process is the work that you got to do to make that system work. And if the people don't want to follow the process, then the system is never going to work. So what we do is we try and make the experience of lead follow-up as native and as familiar and as simple as possible. Because if the process is simple and feels familiar, people will do it. So in our world, you generate a lead. We know it's going to take 8 to 10 follow-up attempts to get a hold of them. So we'll, once you have a kind of express written consent of that person, filling out a form online, you receive that email lead. We'll automate the outbound outreach. So we'll send the text message saying, hey, it's Scott, it's Kayla, it's Jessie from Banana Real Estate. We're trying to follow up with you. You had a question about X, right? Dog parks in whatever city, as an example. We know that we're going to need to make those 8 to 10 outbound follow-up attempts because we live in a world of distraction. So it's not that their intent has changed. It's just that they got busy, right?
Yep.
So all we got to do is we automate the outbound outreach. And when that customer is ready, instead of us interrupting them with outbound, they are basically responding to us on their terms when they're ready, and they're giving you their attention. So if they're responding via text message, the reality is you probably have their undivided attention for the next 1 to 5 minutes. It's kind of the same thing as originally thinking about speed to lead, why that used to work so well, is simply because that person is in that frame of mind, is thinking about that particular task, subject, or whatever that they're responding to. So what CallAction does is does the outbound outreach. We try and generate inbound conversations for your agents that basically show up on their cell phone as an inbound call or a text message, which feels pretty natural and native because that's what you already do anyway. And so we want to simplify the process so that they have more conversations, which is the system, because real estate is a full contact sport, right? You got to talk to people if you want to do deals. And we're just trying to get them into the majority, as many conversations as possible in the 8 hours a day that they have available by doing the thing that they like to do most, which is talking to people, because good salespeople are usually high Ds, right? So they're usually people and not process people.
Very
that
true.
makes sense?
So
Absolutely, yeah.
100%.
The more conversations you have, the more real estate you sell, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I tell people there's a really simple math problem, right? Like we are lead drunk right now. So what happens
we are
is
lead drunk.
Yeah, everyone's like, let's buy leads. Like leads are going to solve everything. Well, if I buy 100 leads and talk to 0, how many deals am I going to do? Zero, right?
Yeah.
If I buy 100 leads and talk to 20 of them because I do maybe 2 follow-up attempts, the maximum I could do is 20 deals, right? But if I follow up 10 times and all of a sudden my conversation rate or my engagement rate goes from 20 to 50 of those leads that I'm actually talking to, how many deals can I close from the same amount of leads, right? My max would be 50 versus 20. So it's a real simple formula, but people forget that, like that little middle level of the conversation is what's actually critical, right? Where if you're just skimming off the top, looking for leads that are ready to buy now, that's very transactional in nature. And that's what the big companies are focused on, because the consumer doesn't care, right? The consumer has no relationships with anyone. He's just trying to get it done because nobody took the time to establish the relationship with them and give them a map on how to achieve their goal, right? The map is a mutual action plan to go from point A to point B. Point B, the destination of that map is being a homeowner. So we got to provide that guidance to get them there. If we don't do that, what's our value? Right?
So true. Love it. Well, Jessie, thank you so much for being here with us today. I am going to link to the blog post, that's awesome, in our description. And you can hit Jessie up on social media. And also we'll link to you in the description. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, guys.
We
And
sincerely enjoyed this. Thank you.
Yeah. Anytime you need me, feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
We truly appreciate you taking the time to be with us here today on the iBuyer Experiment podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe so that you're notified when we launch new podcasts. We'll catch you on the next one.
Show you the money.